Okay, I'm going to talk about the Internet in a Box project, which is a project I started maybe 9 months ago and have been working nights and weekends on. And some of you have helped, and a lot of other people have helped as well. The SGV hack, which we just mentioned, helped me do some testing last week, and is also hosting our mailing list. James helped out putting the website together. So it's a group effort. So what is an Internet in a Box? This is, and let me turn it on, that would help. This is a device which is small and inexpensive. This is about $200, $250. It's a commercial device. Seagate makes this. We hack it up and load information on it. It provides essential Internet resources without any Internet connection. On this device is a local copy of almost a terabyte of the world's free information, and I'll get to what that is in a minute. This is basically a Wi-Fi hard drive with a web interface on it. So in a minute I'll let you do this, don't do it right now. Anyone can hop on their phone, their laptop, their tablets, go on this wireless network and access all of the information through a web interface which we're trying to keep very basic and simple so it can work on things like Windows 95 or on phones and whatever devices are available. So the resources we have loaded on this right now, we have Wikipedia in 40 different languages. We have worldwide maps that zoomable maps that you can zoom all the way down to street level with. We have 40,000 ebooks in many different languages. We have, I'd like to say, most of the world's open source software on this device, including the source code, so that if you want to be a programmer, you can learn from other people. We have a lot of video on the device. We have about 500 hours of instructional video currently in the library. There's almost 4,000 Khan Academy videos on the device right now that you can browse and view. Who is this for? This is targeted for schools and communities in the developing world, places where Internet access is not readily available or is too expensive. Why are we doing this? Well, Internet access is still expensive and difficult in the developing world, but media now exists that we can really hold vast libraries of information on an inexpensive device and get it out into the field. Large sources of content are legally available that we can put on these devices, and inexpensive reader devices now exist which can read libraries on the media. So tablets are coming cheaply, cell phones are everywhere, and laptops are cheaper than ever. So I'll just spend a couple slides on sort of the market. 70% of the population use the Internet in developed countries, while only 24% use the Internet in developing countries. So there's a big gap there even today. This shows on the left the cost. This is a couple years ago, but this is the cost of 20 hours of dial-up per month in the developed world and the least developed world. The Internet access is more expensive in the least developed world because the infrastructure is not there. And it gets worse if you look at it in terms of percentage of per capita income. For the least developed world, this stuff is just unaffordable. They can't get it. And a lot of this has to do with infrastructure. This is the number of bits per bandwidth per inhabitant in the developed world, in the developing world, and in the least developed world. And as you can see, there's just a huge gap in infrastructure here. Even if we gave everybody tablets in the developing world, there simply isn't enough bandwidth for them to be using them. So this problem isn't going away anytime immediately. We have the technology. Half of the US Library of Congress, their printed collection, can fit on a hard drive at this point. It's just an unbelievable density of information that we have. We can push all knowledge to everybody if we could. The law, unfortunately, says you are not allowed to share most information. For better or for worse, whether you agree with it or not, it's there. And so there's only some things that we can share. Most things are now owned by people. So what can we share? We can share anything that is explicitly open source, anything that's actually been licensed to share. Wikipedia falls into this category. OpenStreetMaps falls into this category. Most of the open source software, well, obviously all of the open source software falls into this category. And then we can also share things that are in the public domain. Generally, the rule in the US is that anything before 1923 is in the public domain and it's free. Congress has a bad habit of retroactively extending the copyright, so actually nothing is entering public domain right now until 2019. If they don't change the law again, then we'll start getting a steady flow of things from the 1920s.
Wiki will remain copyrighted.
I'm sure that there's some exceptions. It's a complicated matter. Some things that weren't labeled copyrighted when they were put out fall into the public domain now, but Congress has tried to stop that. So the devices that we're trying to develop, we're primarily doing software and data processing. But what we want to package this as is we want to package it into a device that could be taken anywhere and used on a network that exists, on a network that doesn't exist. So we have basically two devices we're targeting. We have the wireless device. This is completely standalone. It runs off a battery. It has Wi-Fi. It has a 1 terabyte hard drive in it. You could power this off of solar. It doesn't draw much power. You can basically put it anywhere. It opens up its own hotspot, just like you would have at Starbucks. You can connect to it. It'll redirect any web request to itself, and then you can browse the content. And you'll all be doing that in a minute. This is what we call the wired version. This is meant sort of as a network appliance. So if you have a school with an existing infrastructure that has an Ethernet network, at least, that maybe wires up a computer lab, or if you already have a wireless router, you don't really need that functionality, then this is a 1 terabyte device that you can just plug in with Ethernet into your network, and it's there, is available. You send a web browser to it, and all of the content is available for browsing. Obviously, these aren't of much use unless you have a screen to look at. But there are a lot of screens in the world to look at, apparently, and they're becoming cheaper. So one laptop per child, for example, has 2.5 million, I hope I got that right, about 2.5 million devices deployed around the world. So these are devices in children's hands that could talk to one of our devices and actually access content that way. We want to target it. We have some OLPC people here tonight, and I hope they brought some goodies so that we can actually play and see how it works. In India, you can buy tablets for $50. In fact, the Indian government will subsidize that down to something like $22. So cheap tablets are coming all around the world. And then phones are just ubiquitous. For accessing our devices, you would need a phone with Wi-Fi, but you wouldn't need like JavaScript or anything too advanced on the phone side. So phones with Wi-Fi are probably being commoditized right now. It's just so ubiquitous. So even when there isn't infrastructure to use it, I think people are going to get their hands on phones with Wi-Fi very soon. So without further ado, I'll take you through a walk through the site. The first thing we do is, and this will vary on your hardware, but so we have two devices. One is Internet in a Box wired, and one is Internet in a Box. Internet in a Box is this guy here, and this Internet in a Box wired is this guy here. This guy is a little more reliable than this guy, but try it. So I'm going to set my Wi-Fi to Internet in a Box wired. It's already there. Then I go to a web browser, and I go, well, I'm already there, but just to show you. If you go to knowledge, or there's an IP address I'll show you, to go to the box, then you get Internet in a Box, the site. So this is just Firefox. The site is meant to be mobile friendly. That's why things are kind of wide, and there's not a lot going on the screen. And we can select from our content, so let's look at Wikipedia. We have over 40 languages that Wikipedia is in. So we have Persian, Korean, I don't even know what that is, Arabic, and all these are live and active. I don't speak Arabic, so I'm not going to actually look in Arabic. I'm going to go up to English. Even in English, there's several different varieties, several packages of Wikipedia. There's Wikipedia in Simple English for English learners. There's Wikipedia for Schools, which is a good distribution of Wikipedia. I'm just going to go with Wikipedia 0.08. Most of these contain images, but the full text Wikipedia version does not contain images, so that's why I'm going to the 0.8 version. So we are now in Wikipedia. We can click on things and we can see things. We can read Wikipedia just like we'd normally read it, follow links, and we can also search it. We have full text search capability over Wikipedia. Whatever Wikipedia you happen to be in is what it's searching over right now, but we will have a universal search function so you can search all the data content from all the different sources. So if we look up one laptop per child, maybe. There we go. There's the one laptop per child article. You open it up, and we have the full article text for one laptop per child. Click on the X01 laptop, etc. We can go back and back and back to the main page. Now, so we have a lot of books. Our books are provided by Project Gutenberg. We have the complete Project Gutenberg, minus some strange format things I'll talk about in the technical presentation a little bit. So if we were to search Project Gutenberg for Wuthering Heights, maybe. There, auto-suggested it. Joel put this together, this interface. Search for Wuthering Heights. There's Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. We can click on Wuthering Heights, and this is the article page. It knows the subject. We'll be able to, in the future, add browsable capabilities so that you can browse by topic, by subject, by your favorite type of novel, whether you like mysteries and things like that. We have all of that information. We just don't have it very accessible yet. And we open up the Wuthering Heights file, and there is Wuthering Heights. A lot of the books do have images. We have mirrored Gutenberg with the images, so anything that does have images, they will come up as well. There are multiple versions of things, which actually we want to kind of reduce, but there's an HTML version, there's a text version, there's a EPUB ebook version, so you can download this to your ebook reader and read it offline. Let's go back up. Maps is the thing I'm maybe most proud of on this. We have full worldwide maps, completely zoomable. This data is from the OpenStreetMap project. I don't know. Well, maybe we'll look at Berlin. I've never been to Berlin. Assuming that is Berlin. Maybe that's not Berlin. I'm not even sure where I am. It is Berlin. Okay. For all populated places on the planet with more than 5,000 people, we have maps down to the street level. So you can actually get all the way down, even further than this, to individual buildings, individual street names. It's really quite detailed. And that's pretty much anywhere in the world. And where the data is in a foreign language, it will be in a foreign language. So I find this exciting. This took more work than any of the rest of it at this stage. Getting these maps processed takes many weeks of computer time. I'll go into the details in the technical presentation. Video, we've got almost 4,000 Khan Academy videos. The Khan Academy videos are under Creative Commons non-commercial license, so we can legally use them. We can go into any topic like math, go into geometry, check out right triangles maybe. Pythagorean theorem proof sounds interesting. Maybe more technical. Oh, and it died. Disappointing. There. Now, we support HTML5 video as well as using either the WebM or the H.264 codec. Older devices are going to have problems with video because, let me mute that. Older devices are going to have some problems with video because it just wasn't standardized until very recently. But the content is there, so you can always download it and play it in a player that you might have locally, something like that. Yeah.
How do you download it?
Well, we have to add something to let you do that. Maybe a nice download button over here. You could try that. Then software. I would take shout-outs. We have basically a full mirror of the Ubuntu repositories. All of the main Ubuntu repositories are on here along with the source code. So if you wanted to look at, I don't know, how Emacs is built, you can go to Emacs, and there's the sources right there. So you can download that. You can also install Ubuntu on a local machine and use this as your software repository. So you can actually you can install on a lab of computers, and all of those computers can then pull from this repository. In OLPC, you could have a sugar repo on here, perhaps. So it's a nice data set, and it's nice. It gives everybody access to the source code. We'll have a number of settings here. None of this does anything yet. There is also a chat feature we are working on, so that you would get little chat messages along the bottom if you wanted to interact with people that were also on your device. Let's go back to the presentation. So a lot of people I want to thank, and other projects, because I can only do this because there are so many other wonderful projects working in their own specialty of collecting this information. For books, obviously, Project Gutenberg is key. I wanted to thank Joel Steers for building our nice web UI to the Gutenberg project. For Wikipedia, we are leveraging the Kiwix and OpenZim projects. And I want to thank Emmanuel Engelhardt, who is the author of Kiwix, for helping me out a little bit. For hardware, the Arch ARM Linux guys made a port to the wired version of the device we're using. So it's actually running Arch Linux, but I'll get more into that later. And from that project, I really wanted to thank Mike Brown, who tried to get Arch running on the predecessor of the Seagate Plus that we're using now. And Jeff Duzan, who is the U-Boot maintainer, who currently has one of these in his possession that I gave him, and he is trying to get Debian to boot on it, which would be a nice plus for everybody who wants to play with something kind of cool. I want to thank SGV Hack, James, Michael, Doug, and the whole group for helping with the infrastructure. Maps is using OpenStreetMaps, video is using Khan Academy, particularly a sort of blessed torrent made by a user called Zerd, who put together the torrent so we get all the videos in one place, and then we just had to transcribe them to other things. The project started on the Khan Academy forums, and they've been having interactions with the Khan Academy staff, and the staff thinks it's really great to put the videos in a torrent. So the license certainly allows for it, as long as it's non-commercial use. So now's the time to break it. If you have a device, and I want to take kind of a break here, maybe a 5 or 10 minute break, to actually get some feedback from you guys, and if some of you can try it, you can go to the SSID Internet in a Box in your Wi-Fi setup, and then if you go to any web page, it should bring up the Internet in a Box. I don't know what it'll do when 30 people try to do it at the same time, but we'll find out. The other Wi-Fi network available is Internet in a Box Wired. That one's probably a little bit faster. And if you connect to that one, then you have to go to http://knowledge, and that'll point you to the host, or 192.168.1.113. And if the OLPC people, I don't know if you want to bring your devices out, maybe we can try it.
I've got 4 different ones.
You want to lay them out on the table, and we can. I'm really interested to know how it'll work on this.
Been charged up. I don't know about readers of these.
And then I'll start up with a technical presentation in like 5 minutes or so. I'm looking for feedback. Yeah.
Braddock, so that's going to be like a packaged product. So does that mean that like if somebody's like I'm writing a couple books right now, and it'd be awesome to like contribute them to your project, right? Like, can somebody do that later? Will people be able to add to the repository?
Well, people can certainly add to Project Gutenberg directly. I'm not trying to make it my business to. Cool. I'm not trying to make it my business to be an archivist and try to collect individually things. I'm trying to make collections of things.
So does that mean that you'll be pulling from Project Gutenberg?
Yes, I would be pulling from Project Gutenberg. Yeah, I can rsync from that. Cool.
There are 4 different models.
Do they just open up?
Yeah, they do.
That's a loaded question. That's the first thing. I remember seeing that video. Yeah, it's a rating of inclusion.
It took a bunch of Japanese engineers about 10 minutes to figure out.
Well, here, it's on the side. It has a little gravity here. So it has ears.
Oh, when the ears come up, then...
We weren't supposed to tell.
Oh, no, we're on a limited time.
Interesting.
Now, that one happens to have a Spanish keyboard, and it's an XL1.
Okay.
Our button is up here.
This is a 1.5. That's the next one after that. This is a 1.75, and this is the 4, and it's not happy. Huh. Why is it not happy?
So is the software updated on all of them continuously?
No, you have to go and you can update online just certain parts of it, or you can put it on a USB stick and just do the whole thing and reflash the whole machine.
Any of you guys who want to play with the OLPCs, come on up and...
You might want a little more room.
Yeah.
And the way it works, it's a little IMG file. It has you put a 4 gig...
Thumb drive?
No. 4 gig SD
card?
Oh, I use a thumb drive.
And you can use a thumb drive too. And then you turn it on, holding down all the keys, and then it loads the image, and it blanks the tape. I mean, blanks the internal 4 gig, and then it puts it.
Teachers can do it. It's made very simple, less than 10 minutes. If someone grabs the USB stick,
Well, the 2 Spanish pieces, but that's the one. This is the new XL4. It has a touch screen. And it's...
So how do I make something happen here, right?
so
These are...
pick a browser and like that.
Oh, yeah.
How do I tell it to connect to our Wi-Fi?
You're going to be able to type in.
Well, you're going to have to go
This
to the
is the universal the network writing key. You'll find your access point.
Oh, here we go.
Sure.
It says Caltech guest. That's not what I want.
You want internet in a box.
I don't see it. Let's go look here.
Well, you could if you ever use
So that's good. It's got friends, so it's all set.
They're small.
You can go to any web page, which is good.
Yes, you know where.
Wow. Okay, cool. So it is not doing JavaScript. It is barely doing CSS. When's the vintage of the 1.5?
This is 3 years old. And is this recent software here? Let's check.
No.
We can do much better than that if we try it over here, hopefully.
It's trying.
So this is increasingly fast and better software to the right.
I should have brought my Raspberry Pi.
So here, this gives you a little better interface. The keyboard is a little, and if you have a mouse here.
Oh, cool.
So you're all
So I click on the little browser.
right.
You may need to do F1 or F3 as the equivalent over here. F1 or
It changes the
Oh, I
whole
see.
screen.
And you're already on.
Might not
But
work
you may
on
not be on the one you want. Yeah,
But then the URL, you'll be able to put the URL. Oh, you have to get online
No.
first.
Okay.
I know.
Kids do this, right?
Well, they learn.
The wired one's okay, right?
Yeah, wired is.
I choose wired.
Okay.
I found it first.
Yeah, open up the
That's it, right there.
open up the browser and just go to
Oh gosh.
Okay.
try http://knowledge.
Small. What size screen is this?
I don't know. How big is the screen?
1200 by 900?
Really? That much? That's pretty tough.
Are we online? No, that one did not connect. Maybe I should try the other, the non-wired.
It should work on wired. It's not. You can try the not wired, sure.
Oh, that's right.
Are people having luck with the unwired version? Yeah? Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually testing the unwired version. It is. I'm connected to the network, but I can't. It's not actually resolving to a site.
That's on wired?
That's on no. I'm testing
The no wired. Okay, no wired might be broken then.
We might be hitting some limit. This one's not connected.
He did run like the whole.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that's not going to work. So wired is working. I'll check the unwired. The unwired is not as stable yet.
The wired worked fine.
The device goes to sleep partially and then becomes kind of epileptic and loses track of where the hard drives are.
Is it on?
Yeah, this is very worrisome. I would like that one is just not showing. Oh, okay. So we're finally online. And knowledge. Trying. Good, great.
Oh, cool. Cool. Yeah, well, anything. Let's try Wikipedia. Let's try maps.
It's stuck on both and then it finally connected to the wire.
Yeah, mine I actually went to the non-wired one, and then they kicked me back out. It makes sense that they would call it. Yeah, I tried this.
Well, I was following along with him on his presentation.
Now we're on right now.
Where's the back button?
Supposedly the
Is there a back button?
Right here. Those.
Oh, okay. I see. Oh, so Wikipedia works. I have issues with the back button. That's not the computer's fault.
Try something really simple. Don't push it too far.
Let's try maps. See if maps work.
Great. It's got the touch version.
Oh, cool.
How does it work on the touch?
Hey, maps work.
How big is the OSM footprint?
It's about 100 gigabytes of just images. I'll talk about it more in the technical presentation.
This is where you get your network.
The first button.
Cool. Maps is usable.
Videos are easy. Oh, I see. It's connecting one and then.
Yeah, it's not showing the other ones though, which is really bizarre.
It is pretty bizarre. Because it's usually pretty good. It's usually really good about the network.
Video.
I should do that on this one too.
Wired is busted? Okay. It's working for me.
This is a wireless one.
This is the wired one. Yeah. It would help if I left the slide up. You're going to either this or this for wired.
Now,
Oh, video is working. Cool.
if you have a cell phone that doesn't do anything with the phone, there's this woman that has a project in, I believe in Pakistan. They're teaching women to read by giving them a basic cell phone that costs about $30 that doesn't have any connection to
They text or stuff. I think I've heard about
They
this.
have videos in there on lessons on how to read and write, and a little bit of basic
On the
math.
phone itself.
On the phone itself, stored on it. Now, with that,
Yeah, we can take our content and push it onto anything.
or if
So
it had Wi-Fi capability, it could access.
if it had Wi-Fi, it could access this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
But if you actually type the knowledge doesn't go to it. So that's the IP itself. But if I try,
Maybe I have it wrong.
knowledge doesn't go to it.
Oh, you're on the wireless.
The wire.
You're on the wired.
Yeah, the wire one.
On the wireless one, this would be the expected behavior. On the wired one, you have to go to that host.
Oh, on the wire you have to go to the host.
Yeah. Because the wired one is just treating itself like a nice network citizen. It's not trying to clobber everything.
Because I'm actually on the wire.
Yeah, on wired, that's strange. So the IP address is wrong.
Feature request.
Yeah.
Because I tried connecting via Android and just typed knowledge in.
Yeah.
It tried going to Google. That didn't recognize Google. Looped Google back to itself too, because Wikipedia sent it right to its main page.
I see. Okay, why don't we do the technical presentation and then we can.
Video seems to be audio only. Do you know what?
Some of these Khan Academy ones are. Let's see if I can slider it.
Put it down.
Because they often talk for a long time and then draw something. So,
you're right.
See, there it goes. Yeah. What version is that?
This is a 1.65-year-old model. What video format is this?
It tries WebM, which is the new Google one, and then it tries H.264.
Okay.
So we have both of them. Yeah.
And the video is working. No problem.
Cool. Okay, guys. Thanks for your patience. That was certainly helpful for me. So I'm going to sort of informally go about how we technically built this. And any questions you guys have, just shout them out, and I'll try to answer them. But this is just sort of my misadventures in data processing. First, the hardware. So we obviously didn't build this. This is a Seagate Wireless Plus. It's a consumer electronics device. It costs about $200. It is marketed as a wireless hard drive, something you can put movies on and then go on a plane ride and watch the movies using your phone or something like that. It has a 1 terabyte drive. On the internals to it, it's real nice because you can tell it to any of these devices and log in as root with the password GoFlex, and you're in. So it's very hacker friendly. Once you're, and you can do it on this one, but don't break anything, please. Once you're in there, you're in this Argo Linux firmware, which is sort of a busy box type of environment, which is actually pretty nice for just someone's stock firmware. And then you have all this Seagate crud on top of it, sort of ugly web user interface and stuff that we're trying to kill off. The device is a U-boot device, and we're working on getting Debian to install natively on this device. We are currently running as a change-rooted Debian install inside of the Argo Linux firmware that comes with its stock, since we haven't figured out all the hooks for the U-boot to get it like a new kernel in there and things. So it's a change-rooted Debian environment. It works pretty well, considering. And all of our scripts are written in Python. So we're using Python and Flask on the back end. We're using an Nginx reverse proxy to our, for now we're using an Nginx reverse proxy into our Flask development server that's running. And we also run Kiwix server. I'll get into that in a minute for the Wikipedia services, and we reverse proxy that through the Nginx front end. But the web server itself is Nginx, and then we have all of our Python stuff behind that. The GoFlex Home is the wired version. It's a 1 terabyte. I think you can get it in 2 terabytes too. Low-end network-attached storage device. It costs about $150. It's got a 1 gigabit per second Ethernet port, which is good for syncing data to and from it. The plan for upgrades is, obviously we can't have people download upgrades because that would kind of defeat the purpose. And it's about a 750 to 1 terabyte of data for the whole data set. So the upgrade plan is that you get a device into the field and you can connect them somehow, maybe just by network, and they can sync from one another. So that you could sync upgrades to the device. This device is running ArchArm. The ArchArm Linux guys have a great tutorial specifically for this device and how they hacked it and how you can get into U-boot and install a new kernel and run Debian or run Arch on it. There is also the ability to run Debian natively on it. Because this one is already a change-rooted Debian, I hate to say we're actually running a change-rooted Debian inside Arch on this guy, which, don't ask, but it works. Then behind the scenes, there's 2 servers that I've been keeping very busy, chugging through data. I'll call them Node 8 and Node 16. Node 8 is an 8 gigabyte machine, quad-core, 1 terabyte hard drive. And Node 16 has a 500 gigabyte SSD, which I got because you absolutely needed to process the map data because the stuff is just so heavy. So if we talk about how we maps, the maps are OpenStreetMap map data. OpenStreetMaps is an open source effort to map the whole world. They get government data, they get their own data. It's an amazing effort, and they really do a great job. And they've invented an open source license to cover database data. They were under a Creative Commons license, but that got very confusing when people created maps from the data and then they didn't know if they published a book with that, if they had to somehow provide the data or what the legal ramifications of it were. So they've recently converted their entire database to this Open Data Commons open database license. Then for the actual browser that's zoomable and works well with cell phones, we use an open source project called the Leaflet.js, which is a JavaScript app that runs on the client and allows you to do the zooming and everything. The map process, the data flow, takes a long time. First you download the planet file, which is like a proprietary, it's not proprietary, it's an open standard, but they invented it. It's about 30 gigabytes, maybe it's 24 gigabytes. And it contains all of the data you see in the map system, all worldwide. You then have to process that file into a Postgres GIS database. The final database size is about 350 gigabytes, which is sort of seems crazy to me, but somehow that's how it comes out. On that Node 8 machine, the 8 gigabyte machine, I started swapping, and the import took about 2 weeks to do. It did succeed, but it took 2 weeks. That was when I bought the Node 16 machine, realizing what I was up against. It takes about 4 days to run on that machine. I wish I had gone back and bought 32 gigabytes for that machine, because then it's supposed to run in about 12 hours. Once you have the database, we can't use that directly. We render the database to image tiles. We pre-render everything. There is no rendering of map data going on these little devices. They're too slow. So we render the entire globe as PNG images, and it takes about a week using both of the machines as sort of a cluster. And at the end, it gives you about 150 gigabytes of image tiles. We then pack the image tiles specially for our software, doing a few optimizations. It brings the total size down to about 100 gigabytes for the data set. And that's what we then display. As I said, these devices are not powerful enough to render the maps from the actual database. I know because I tried it. I built the entire stack on that ARM device, and it ended up taking 1 to 5 minutes per tile, and a tile is only 256 by 256, so a whole screen. You basically went to Berlin, then you went and had a cup of coffee, then you came back, and it kind of had Berlin rendered. It was about the speed of it. So we pre-render everything. The OpenStreetMap guys have a file format where they sort of combine 64 images into one file. We found that to be too inefficient for what we wanted to do, so we are combining 4,000 images into one file. And then we remove redundant tiles, because 70% of the tiles you see are a nice picture of blue ocean that's completely identical to the one next to it. That saves a lot of space. Then we wrote a Python backend to actually read the data format and serve it up as PNG images individually to the client. Books, we're using Project Gutenberg, which was founded in the 70s. They've got about 40,000 ebooks now. Most of them are in the public domain. Again, Joel did the web front end. The process with the books, first you have to get the archive. I'll tell you, the Gutenberg archive is kind of a mess. It's got about 40 years of stuff in it, and but it has things in multiple formats. It's not clear which format is definitive and which formats were just derived. It's got wonderful things like, for example, many, many gigabytes of ISO images of prior versions of the archive in the archive. So you have to do a lot of excluding in your rsync. Mirroring Project Gutenberg is also a problem. The official top-level mirror is iBiblio, but they are discontinuing their rsync service sometime in the near future. They keep threatening. I don't know where we're going to get it from after that. And iBiblio, the rsync service is really slow. It seems to be throttled, and it's unreliable. It kind of times out every few hours, and then they have to start over again. And unfortunately, with rsync, starting over again means parsing through a few million files in the archive. That's the first step, which takes like an hour anyway. So it takes about 1.5 weeks to download the mirror with an rsync script that just keeps trying until it gets it all. It's not ideal. Wikipedia, of course, is one of the highest ranked websites, and all of this content is open source. In order to use Wikipedia, we're leveraging the OpenZim and the Kiwix projects, which I had never heard of before delving very deep into this. OpenZim is what Kiwix is built on. The Zim format is a format that's been designed specifically for archiving Wikipedia articles. And it doesn't actually archive the wiki markup. It archives an HTML version of each file, so you actually have to have servers render the wiki markup into HTML for you, and then it stores a file inside this container file, the Zim file, of each of those HTML pages, and it compresses them and things for you. What's really wonderful about the Zim format is it has a community of people who have Zimmed everything. So all we had to do, instead of rendering everything ourselves, which we were trying to do, was download 30 gigabytes or so worth of, no, it was more than that, download all of the Zim files that people had already created for us. So we used them, and then Kiwix is a reader. It's mostly a desktop reader for reading Zim files offline. So you can read Wikipedia offline by downloading the corresponding Zim file to your desktop. But they also have a server which you can run, and which some of the OLPC people told me about actually, which will serve up the Wikipedia content with a web front end, a very simple one. We're probably going to move away from that. It's really, we can write our own front end using the OpenZim library to actually get the content. There's not much advantage in us keeping Kiwix as part of our solution. Then there's Wikipedia. You can directly download XML dumps of all the Wikimedia projects very easily. You cannot do bulk downloads of all the images that are inside the Wikipedia articles, which is sort of a problem. You have to somehow spider Wikipedia. They don't really like you to do that. I'm not sure how the Zim guys did it. They kind of just, as far as I know, abused Wikipedia and got all this stuff out. Now, we built a whole chain where you could enter in a couple dozen languages of Wikipedia you were interested in. We have a script that runs it, downloads each of them, processes them all, pushes them all into a MySQL database, and generates the web front end for each language that you're interested in. We automated all of that, and then we discovered the Zim guys had already really done it. So, the only problem with the Zim files is that some of them are a few years old. Wikipedia is really great, but it's heavily English dominated. It drops off very quickly, number of articles per language. It sort of has a long tail there. But it's the only game in town. We would like to add open source textbooks. Our understanding of the MIT courseware licenses is that we can use that for non-commercial purposes and actually have some of the MIT college level courses online, and they have some K through 12 stuff too. There's a lot of models emerging around open source textbooks. California spends $400 million a year on textbooks, so they're very interested in making an open source textbook movement. There's a few specific examples, like the free high school science texts, which is a project to generate a full course of textbooks. But right now we haven't touched textbooks because it's a very fragmented collection of things, and I don't want to become an expert in it. Here's another reader option. The World Reader Project looked at equipping classrooms in Africa with Kindles, which they preloaded stuff onto, but obviously we would be able to load stuff onto them from the server too. So that's another reader device that we could support. And I want to talk about the Humane Reader because I presented here a couple years ago about this. This was an Arduino-based hardware and software design that I did. It got a lot of publicity. You could hook it up to a television, and it had a reduced form of Wikipedia, most of Wikipedia on it, on an SD card. And the idea was to get them mass-produced for about $20 a unit. The problem was the mass production thing. Really, this project came down to I needed to get orders for thousands of units, and there just wasn't the channels available. One thing OLPC has done is they have built their own channels, I think, basically, to get this sort of volume that they need. And I am not the person to do that. So that's what happened with the Humane Reader. So if any of you want to volunteer or talk to us or use our stuff, it's all open source. It's meant to be reused. It's kind of hard to share 1 terabyte of data, but we can ship hard drives around the country and things. But the code is all there. All the scripts, dirty and not dirty, are in there. It's a GitHub project, and if you want to join the mailing list, just contact me and we can set you up. Any questions? Yeah.
You said you wanted to support Windows 95.
Well,
are you
yeah.
going to test that?
Yeah. I'll let somebody test it. We're using jQuery Mobile as our basis, and jQuery Mobile can support devices that have no JavaScript and no CSS support. In theory, it's just a bunch of links, and you would just get our menus, but they would be dumb blue links, and you click on them and get dumb new links, and you can migrate through the data that way. It's kind of hard to do maps that way. It's kind of hard to do video that way. But books, sure. You can navigate through a set of links and do search form fill-outs, and it should work. And Wikipedia, it should be very possible as well. Yeah.
Brad, you said that they were going to retail like around $250.
Well,
is that like 1 order? Is that like a 10 order?
I don't know yet. I mean, I don't really want to be a retailer. But my thought is, if we had a market for many of these devices, then we would have to somehow sustain ourselves, and maybe sell them at some sort of markup to have somebody go in there and clone the data on each and every one of them. But I don't know if that's really something I want to pursue. I think that would be basically what it would end up costing. I think in terms of time and effort and money, the device being $200 or $150, I think it would probably come out to that sort of cost to actually be producing them if that's what you wanted to do.
So they're available, like if somebody wanted to buy one off of you now?
I would say you're going to have to wait a couple months to get the software together. But I'm looking for people to work with, and I don't, first I don't care about selling them. I just want to get them out. If somebody has 100, well, then I'm going to have to do something, or teach them how to make them, or something. I don't know what the model is for that.
There's the other project, which is Kelowna, make one, right? So you just got to write scripts that make them,
right?
And then make that open source so that anyone can theoretically.
That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to document for each of these different subdomains of knowledge how we get the data, how we process the data, so that you could build everything from scratch and from primary sources if you wanted to. I want that all documented, and some people have been very happy that I'm documenting some things like that. They have been very happy. Yeah.
In terms of, say, some type of learning management system or way for a person to kind of set up a profile, and or giving teachers something as a guide to work with multiple students.
I don't have anything like that.
So Curriki, C-U-R-I-C-K-I, they've grown like overnight. It's totally open source. It's all about curriculum.
Curriki.
Yeah, Curriki, C-U-R-R-I-K-I.
What I'm really kind of hoping is that maybe one laptop per child who is good at that sort of thing can be using this sort of thing to complement their stuff.
They need it. Because our server, we've been talking about setting up servers, and it's kind of, it's all over the place. And because so many of our sites are overseas or in third world countries, and so part of it too is, can we get enough of people here even in Los Angeles or interested in ExoWiki to actually put some of these things together? Mm-hmm. And is there a need here for any of it? And my research has shown it's kind of a low level, but it's a need. The screen and like you say, the hardware part is real interesting with the OLPC, and that does give it its foundation.
With a external hard drive, even one of these guys could run the server.
Are there any sysadmin videos part of the
How do you implement search for the Wikipedia part?
Kiwix does that for us, and Kiwix is simply front-ending Zapier, I think it's called. It's a full-text search engine. They have programs. Kiwix is all C++, but they basically are C++ scripting index builders to build the indexes in Zapier, if that's what it's called. And then they just use those indexes for search.
And how are you planning to do the device-wide search?
Device-wise search. For most of the things that are under our control, we're trying to use the Whoosh search engine, which is a Python engine. So, for example, our Gutenberg index, and I think Joel just checked in a location index for map searching, geographic place name index. Those are in Whoosh databases, and we would just be searching them one by one and try to figure out a good way. The way I really wanted to do it was, if you look in the mock-ups, you would do a search up here, and then in each of the subcategories, numbers would come up showing you how many hits you had. And then you'd go into each one and you'd see your hits, and then you can explore further that way.
A few years ago, I got to meet some of the OpenStreetMap guys at OSCON in San Jose, and they really were amazing. So I haven't followed it, and I'm really glad to see that they're continuing to rock along. But I'm really curious, with your epic upload of the data into PostgreSQL, the scripts for that open source?
Yeah. They're basically command line utilities that the OpenStreetMap guys made. That's a process. You can go online and you can find that process and just run through it. It just takes a long time to do. But they have very good documentation. The OpenStreetMap guys have very good documentation on how to run a tile server, which is what the end product is. And then from that stage, making all of the munging all the images together and optimizing and all that stuff is just stuff I did. But that first section, the bulk of the work is well documented by them.
Thank you.
You mentioned having an operating system on there and repositories for Linux. As someone who might be very, very new to Linux, I can't imagine doing that without searching forums and stuff like that. Do you plan on having tutorials or manuals for getting started in that?
If someone finds a collection of tutorials and manuals, I will use that data set. But I'm not a curator, so I wouldn't be curating it myself. Yeah, Doug?
Maybe limiting it so that if you have a lot of students, say, accessing, Wikipedia, and you don't want to overload it when somebody tries to go to maps, think about having, parts in there that can kind of be rate limited, or at least, deny access based on IP maybe until, like another student has moved on, the load is dropped off. Kind of a load balancing, guys.
Yeah, certainly we could access the load of the server and say, hold on a minute, wait until I catch up, or something like that. But until I have a case where I can run into that regularly and know how to fix it, then I'm not going to try to fix it before I have the problem. How was this performance for the guys? For those of you who actually connected?
I'm still using it now. I'm on the wire.
Yeah.
But it seems fine. And I zoomed all the way into Los Angeles. I was good with the map.
Cool.
Yeah, I know OpenStreetMap, those people, they issue updates every
day.
How do you handle updates here?
Well, since I'm pre-rendering everything, I don't handle them very well. I basically have to pick a time and re-render, and then push those updates. Most of the tiles won't change, so if you're doing an rsync, it's not going to require you to transfer all that data again. But yeah, I currently don't have a pipeline for handling updates right now. Yeah.
The way you're approaching the update process, is it mostly an offline thing?
Yeah. Yeah, I would think somebody wants an upgrade, so we ship them out a hard drive, they plug it into this guy, and then this guy syncs up, something like that. But and maybe that happens once a year. That's sort of my thinking on updates.
How did you do the deduping of the map images?
Well, I almost used the standard file format that the OpenStreetMap guys do. They have a format where they usually keep their images in 8x8 grids, so there's 64 images per file. Because an image of blank blue ocean takes about only 100 bytes and it's PNG compressed. and they have an index at the top of that file that points into the data to where each file is located. So all I did was I took their format and I detected duplicates, and then I just pointed them to the same place in the data, which works. And then I increased the size to 4,000 images instead of 64, because the problem is you can't actually, a 64 tile file of just ocean comes in at like 7K, and the node size on the file system is, I forget if it's 4 or 8K or whatever. You're using a certain number of nodes on the file system anyway, because you're just on extended 3. So in order to reduce it, you have to conglomerate more images into one file so that that file can be smaller. Otherwise, you're just allocating nodes off the disk, and even though your file size might be tiny, it doesn't matter.
What sort of help do you need now?
Oh, good question. I like that question.
I got that question before.
Yeah. We need someone to take ownership of the software stuff. It would be nice to have searchable software, so you could say, show me editors, and it would show editors. Something using the apps repositories, I guess. I need somebody who can take this device and tame it. It has a bad habit of partially going to sleep, and then it can't recover, and I don't understand what's going on with it, and somebody needs to just play with it for a while and figure out what its strange behavior is.
Slap it around so it falls in love.
Yeah. Certainly the user interface can use work. I'm not a graphic artist by any stretch of the imagination. We need to unify search. We need somebody to get familiar with Wikipedia and the Zim stuff and probably rewrite what the Kiwik server is doing right now. I'm sure I can come up with something for anybody if they ask.
You have a bunch of issues in your GitHub.
Yeah, I do. We have. I can't get to it from here, but yeah, we have a bunch of open issues on the GitHub. So there's lists of things to tackle. But I really would like. I would like it if I can figure out a way to deploy a unit in sort of a field trial in the next couple months and actually get some feedback from. Yeah.
I may have a place for you.
Okay, great.
So,
yeah,
how
Lan?
many different types of devices do you have?
How many different?
You're trying this on?
I'm trying it on these two. I was trying it on the Seagate satellite, which was last year's model of that one, but I don't care now. I'm just going to use.
So you're just picking a certain type that you must develop towards it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really tied to these devices. The software can run on any Linux box. As long as you got Linux and Python, pretty much you can run the service. So those are really the only requirements.
So what you're saying is that if you just attach a hard drive to a little computer.
Yeah, if you took a hard drive, attach it to this, I could run on it. Yeah, Richard.
Is search running Lucy? Is search running Lucy?
No. The Wikipedia full text search is using I think it's Zapier. And then the search we're using for our books and for our coming map search is Whoosh, WHOOSH, which is a pure Python solution.
Works.
So the Khan Academy videos, BlackBerry doesn't like them.
Oh, really?
Yeah. BlackBerry's right out on either your device.
Okay.
It's BlackBerry. They may be going the way those guys know.
Much that's not BlackBerry.
Like, who uses BlackBerry? Business. Enterprise.
I'll talk to you later. We're keeping them alive.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah, Lan.
How separate is like the data from your software? Or is it like tightly integrated, or can someone just like grab the data and use the chemical software?
The more I optimize, the closer they're becoming intertwined. Like, I mean, the Wikipedia stuff is just a bunch of Zim files, so you can use anything on your desktop that can read Zim files, which means Kiwiks, and you can read them. The Gutenberg stuff is a mirror of Gutenberg. I want to change that, and I've been talking with the creator of Kiwiks actually to make a Zim of Gutenberg that more efficiently represents the text. and more cleanly represents it, because the Gutenberg archive is a mess, as I mentioned. And so I'm actually looking now to pull certain formats out of the Gutenberg archive and process them into HTML images and Zim. So that would make it less of a pure mirror, but I don't think you want a pure mirror of Gutenberg. Yeah.
Right. So I might be way wrong, but is like the future goal to try to build like a Linux distribution for it? Like in terms of like, since you said you can drop it onto any external hard drive, so that made me think, hey, that would be like a Linux distro. You just drop it on a 1 terabyte hard drive and your external hard drive, and you're good to go.
Well, I think taking it a step further is what these devices do. I mean, they're basically running Linux, and they're devices that are network appliances that provide the services. That's the easiest, lowest maintenance way I could think of doing it. I wouldn't want to say, okay, now use your BIOS and configure it to boot from this USB hard drive, and then you're all set. Yeah, I mean, people can do that. Yeah. People can certainly do that if they want to do that for some reason. For example, the OLPC servers, I mean, they have a server, they have a couple of variants of server devices that they use, and they have sort of, I don't know, I guess there's some sort of Red Hat distro or something. We could put this in there as a module, and then they've got 10,000 of those things all over the world.
Then they can propagate the data.
Right, well, yeah, you'd have to bring a hard drive, plug it in, and then install the module, and then you're good to go.
You can do the updates.
You could do the updates by hard drive now. Yeah.
How full is the hard drive right now?
Yeah.
The current data set, as it is right now, is about 750 gigabytes.
So half of it is maps, basically.
No, maps is about 100 gigabytes. That's the data set on the device. I have maybe a terabyte and a half worth of data in various stages of processing on the servers that are being processed. So I have the 350 gigabytes worth of map database on the server, but that doesn't get put on the device.
So if hard drive space wasn't a concern, are there other services that you would like to provide besides Wikipedia and Maps and all of those?
There's not much that I can think of, because I'm trying to put everything I can think of in there that's big. Yeah, I guess you could get like the Usenet archives, or you could put forums on. If you can get the rights to the forums, I don't know. If you think of something, tell me, and we can put it on there. There's lots of little things that could be wrapped up, but I'm trying to get the big things first.
What about like the Linux how-tos and that sort of thing?
TLDB.org.
Yeah, I could pull all that down, bring down all the Linux documentation. I mean, a lot of that's under free license. Yeah, I mean, certainly you already have the man pages and the info files and everything in there somewhere. If you had a Linux box that you installed from one of our devices, and you have access to all the documentation that comes with all of the software, because everything's there.
The only other thing I can think of would be a Jabber server.
Yeah. OLPC runs Jabber servers.
Are there any newspapers that are going to?
Not that I know of. Probably. There's probably podcasts that have open licenses. I haven't looked at that either.
What about just traffic, weather, and sports?
Well, you can have last year's traffic, weather, and sports.
Especially for sports, you're talking licensing.
Hey, the team that wears blue and white just beat the team that wears red and black.
What's the power draw?
I haven't measured it. This is purported to run for 5 hours of continuous use off its battery. I don't know if I believe claims like that, but it's not clear. They claim 24 hours if you're not using it constantly, but if you're watching movies, it's supposed to be like 5 hours of movie watching. So that would imply continuous disk usage, but I don't know if I believe it.
Which wireless protocols does it support? Is it N? Is it B and G and A and
G? I don't know off the bottom.
I can't see it running. How many hours did you just say?
5.
I can't see it running 5. It's running A. Jeez.
Yeah.
Eat that battery in no time.
But it's mainly. I mean, in most instances, you're probably going to have some sort of network in place already, and you'll want the wired version anyway.
Is there anyone connected to it right now? Can you check to see if it's on N and what frequency?
have Wi-Fi.
2, 3, 4, 5.
Hi. I just want to remind people the obvious that 2/3 of the world is offline and will remain offline for a long, long, long time. And so I and Carol and a few people have actually taken over the OLPC school server project. We meet in Toronto, and it's coming back to life in a much more community way. And we have the same slogan as you, but we call it the offline cloud. And we deployed one in Haiti last month. And of course, after some careful curation of great French and Creole books, everyone just used Facebook, right? Because they found a channel to the internet, right? And they said, that's very nice, all of you. We're not really curators, but here's some nice content. This is what we really want, Facebook. You know, it doesn't matter if they never touched a computer prior to that week. You know, it's just that's the way the world works. But so I want to just congratulate you because, you know, I'm not a curator is a fantastic lie because I've never seen such great curation.
Thanks.
Of way we pulled together all together here. We tried and we spent 6 months pulling together bits and pieces, but we didn't get anywhere near this far.
So how can we help you?
Yeah,
maybe we can talk.
The group that I'm coordinating is schoolserver.org, which kept taking OLPC.
What's your name?
Adam Holt.
Adam. Okay.
Yeah. So we're taking the low-level school server and trying to push it out of OLPC so it applies in many more library and school situations. But we're trying to stay as a kernel, and like you, no, we're not curators. No, but someone has to be. I think that's the real elephant in the room. No one wants to be curators, but it's useless unless content and curation happens, right? So that's the real question.
Email me, and maybe we can start a dialogue. And I need a channel if this is going to go anywhere. And you guys are definitely the biggest one.
Carol has another group doing some of those higher layers. So
we're sort of curators. I took one of these MOOCs online. It was a Stanford Venture Lab thing. And some of the OLPC people were with me and some other people too. And we came up with our project, which we called Local Fly. And it's kind of what you've got there, except that we have 2 people on our team that are working on servers. But we'll take any and all servers. And our object is to have things available to people where they can find out where to get them. If it's something they could download, we'll have it available for download. We'll have links to where they can get it. We'll have resources for teachers.
So it's like you're the card catalog. Of
all kinds of good stuff on our website. And it's in the process of being rebuilt right now. But it's localfly.org. We aren't an NGO yet. We want to be, but we haven't incorporated yet. But that's a place where we would love to be able to put people in touch with you and your device.
Okay, great. That would be wonderful. We'll email or talk
and
after.
The whole idea, the reason it's Localfly, our team's name was Unplug, because we wanted to go where there wasn't any electricity and any internet.
Oh yeah, I have a nice solar panel here, by the way. I mean, you can get these. It's not too expensive.
Oh, this is wonderful.
Yeah, I haven't tried powering this all day with it, but in theory. Yeah.
Did you, at any point during the development process for this product, evaluate using the old Linksys WRT 4G routers and installing your own flash memory and loading Debian on those?
Well, I need the storage. All right, so then you'd have to have a hard drive on it, talking to it somehow. I mean, this device gives me the hard drive and the Wi-Fi, so problem solved. The WRT 54Gs, I mean, how would you put bulk storage on that?
People are modifying them with soldering on USB ports and plugging in drives, and it requires more power that way. But for flash storage, people don't need to do any type of power changes. I'm just thinking about price. If price was one of the priorities for this project, I guess I don't know if you mentioned it. Was price an object? I mean, right now it's priced at $250 per unit.
Yeah. Well, I tried with my Humane Reader to go on the low end, and I couldn't find the channel to get units out in quantity. So I was looking to see how cheaply I could do everything. Get just as much data thrown at it and have the most features in something that was only a few $100s. So I've had price in mind. I don't want to go over $300 or whatever. I want it as cheap as it can be. But I want to see how much data I can assemble in one place. Hard drives don't get much less expensive the smaller they are. If I had half the amount of space that I have here, it'd probably be $50 less. It doesn't factor in anymore.
I know you said that it's starting to get more integrated, but then the modularity. Have you thought about the balance of, because if you could, say here's 100 gigs and you can just
I intend to modularize the different units, and maybe you have maps down to city level, and then you have maps down to street level as a separate module, and you can pick and choose and build your own thing. So you build the 500 gigabyte server you want instead of having everything. I intend to reorganize all the data and the software into a modular form like that, but I haven't done it yet.
And then you can choose which updates you actually
Yes, and it fits in with the update. You need to do both, really, because then you got to say, except on a larger, the modules would be pretty bulky. One module might be 100 gigabytes, but
that's better than 700.
Yes. Okay, well, thanks, everybody.